Kerdos episode 11, we said, didn't we? Kerdos Insights episode 11. So this is a bit of a mouthful. We'll see if I can get it out first time. Business to business demand funnels that create better alignment between sales and marketing. Smashed it. And we have a special guest. So we've got James Pether. So I'd normally like to hand it over, James, to give you a bit of an intro, but I think that you're going to be able to tell a better story than me. So if you could tell the people what you do and why you're here, and then obviously we can go through kind of the crux of the conversation.
Yeah, so I'm the Group Marketing Manager for the Payroll Centre and Accounts Payable Association. My journey in marketing is a bit unique, I guess. I started off as an apprentice at marketing from 17 and it's grown and grown and grown, and that's where I am now. So essentially the companies I work for are training education providers, but in a niche sector, right? So the payroll is normally you have payroll software and you have payroll training within your software, but we train people on how to process payroll. It's all well and good having a bit of software, but if you don't know how to use it, then you can't process payroll. And then on the Accounts Payable Association, it was a startup that was purchased by the CEO of our company about 2 years ago, just before COVID happened, which is the worst time possible. But essentially what it is an association for accounts payable people to actually start to sort of have a voice within the industry, because back office staff, and not to be stereotypical, they don't typically go out and see people. They don't typically go and know other people within the industry. Marketers and salespeople know each other because they're out and they're communicating, whereas the industries I work for don't do that. So it's about having that voice and having a platform and having a community to talk to. So they come to conferences and training, and it's very similar to the payroll world, but we're building up the accounts payable industry. So yeah, that's what we do in a nutshell.
Love it. Amazing. Thank you for going into it. And I know we're going to break the long-winded subject down into 6 key sectors. So we're going to go for targeting, websites, content delivery, alignment between sales and marketing, ads, and event strategy. I think it makes sense to start at the top, so targeting. I wanted to ask you, Joe, initially, how important would you say it is to vary your targeting options?
Yeah, I think targeting is very important. I think it's probably one of the first things that me and James actually agreed with when we first met after a referral from Carl, was it?
Yeah, Hugh Matthews, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the first things that I realised when going into conversations with people like, James, normally there isn't that alignment, and there was straight away, becoming more targeted to impact the end result, which is driving revenue, becoming make sure the approach is right for them, that size business. So when we spoke about it, when we were looking at the target demographics, it was very much like anyone who works in payroll in the UK. But then it was like, well, actually, let's not put the enterprise clients with the smaller firms, or even like accounting firms as well, because each company would react differently to the content that's put in front of them. Yeah. Each company would react differently to the approach and the method. So it's so important to make sure targeting is accurate as it possibly can be. And you break down it and change the funnels and the way that the cadences are written. And definitely that's something that I know that James has worked quite heavily on in his current role. Certainly when it comes to the automation funnels, but in the right way, because I know that you know how I feel about automation. So.
Yeah, I absolutely do. James, how much of a breath of fresh air was it to meet and I guess speak with someone that was on the same page? Because we've had these sorts of conversations before, and sometimes it very much feels like you're trying to push water up a hill, doesn't it, speaking these messages? But how refreshing was it that you were both on the same page when it comes to this?
Yeah, it's an easy conversation, right? There are times where I've had telemarketers, salespeople, whatever it is, trying to sell me the latest software, technology, services, and they go, well, this just works as a package, but it doesn't, right? Like we work in such a niche sector, but we cater for every company, right? So it's, if you pay people, if you have a company that pays people, we can help you. And Joe instantly went, well, hang on a minute, you don't just suit a package feeling. We need to help you with X, Y, and Z, and then we need to cater it around which type of companies we are. Because if you've got an SME, yeah, they process payroll, but they probably outsource it. So we need to go and find the people that they speak to who outsource it, right? But their message, because they're going to have a big payroll bureau, whatever it may be, is we can help your entire team. We can help with this technology, this technology, this technology. If you're a smallish payroll team of 2, 3, 4 people, right? We don't want that message. We want them to say, well, we can help you on this training and we can help you with a membership, because they need different things. And finding the needs of a customer is way more important than trying to just cater as a package. And that's probably...
What do you mean by that exactly? Go into that a bit more, because I think that's an interesting point.
In a marketing perspective, I had it the other week where you want a website and they go, well, this is the package that we think fits you. That's not a package that I want. What I want is somebody to make something bespoke to me, because then it makes me feel like I'm a personable person. Sure. But also at the same time, when you're buying something, you feel like you're going to use it because you have that connection instantly, rather than just I'm going to sell you X, Y, and Z. You'll probably be 6 months down the line thinking, well, why am I not using this? Instead, it's from the off. You have to set it from the salesperson to the marketing team, whatever it is. They all have to be on the same goal.
And I said about this again. Like, I meet with probably about 4 or 5 heads of marketing, group director of marketing per week. And the majority of them, I'd say 95 to 98% of the people that I meet in that role have some form of lead target. Whereas instantly, James changed the that alignment. Was focusing on changing that alignment and building belief in the CEO. I know it was probably the communication was a bit tougher as well, but setting that standards to the CEO to say it can't be lead focused anymore. We need to work from the sales back and understanding. So when I was saying, when we compare ourselves to the other telemarketing companies that they were speaking with, there were other companies when we first spoke, and you said instantly there was a difference between, they were heavily focused of, we're going to get you 10 to 12 leads per month or whatever. I was like, no, I'm not going to give you a number. And because it's not about the number, it's about the number of conversions. And then I'm sure that James will agree, my guys are more interested in what's happened with that opportunity, what's happened with this, and understanding when they close business over, but also understanding why didn't that one convert. I think it's important. So, yeah, I guess that's probably where I made the difference.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think marketers have this thing where they have to hit numbers. Instead, I want to hit conversions with the less numbers possible, right? If you've got 5 people in a pipeline and you convert 5, that looks better than having 100 leads and then 5, right? It's you need to build up real people with the right target market from the beginning, because otherwise people lose focus. And that's why, PPC doesn't work at times, right? Because people just go, I need leads now. And then when the inquiries come in, it's going, oh, well, that's not the right person and that's not the right person. Instead, you just need to go from the off and go, well, I want to target this person, this person, this person, and that's it. And just focus on that and see whether it works or not and test it.
Yeah, you said at the beginning of that answer that marketers are focused on numbers or lead capture or whatever it might be. How much do you think that has to do with the, more often than not, poor relationship between marketing and sales?
It comes from the pressure of the top, right? It depends who's applying the pressure, but it's hard for me to say it because me and the sales team are really close, and that's a really good. And
well, how have you created that relationship then?
Because me and the manager get on really well. We have a really good sort of open communication, and there's no egos. It's just saying, look, are we doing a good job? Are we supporting you? And vice versa, because sales and marketing work as a clockwork.
So has that always been there though? Because no, I was under the impression you had to really work on that.
Yeah, so when I first joined, it was pretty tough at times. I'll be honest, it was kind of a bit disjointed. The systems didn't work properly. We were like a 2000 organisation working in a 2020 world. We did, and I think B2B industry is always a little bit slower than the B2C world. But what we've worked on quite well is being consistent in our messaging across the internal team, right? And making sure that the sales team can see what I can see, because there's nothing that marketers are hiding. It's just they don't know how to use that data to interpret, to speak on calls and use that when painting a picture, because that's really important, is having an open communication between sales and marketing. Whereas in other companies and other times, they can't stand each other, and that's the worst case scenario, because what happens is then you have 2 people trying to run a 100-meter sprint, but on different lengths of the track, whereas you want to be doing it in a synchronized period.
What are your thoughts on that, Joe? I'm just interested to ask, because obviously this is the first person that we've had fighting the marketing corner. I think you're quite fair in your arguments, but more often than not, I think you'd openly admit that it comes from a sales perspective and in terms of the frustrations there. So what are your thoughts here in that?
Well, I mean, he's aligned, right? I know it's often comes across like I'm knocking down marketing directors, managers, but it's not. I'm trying to, because sales are just as bad, because you have sales team who are like, I need more leads, which then actually that's what marketing sometimes listen to. So actually it's not always marketing's fault. In the scenarios I've given, it's been marketing's fault because that's what I've been through. But it's like music to my ears. When I got off the call with James, I called Carl Hewitt and I was like, wow, I never expected that I'd ever speak to a marketing person, a marketing manager, a head of marketing, and get the response that says, yeah, Joe, I don't want hundreds of leads. I don't want hundreds of leads. Even though my sales team will be asking where are the leads, I don't want hundreds of leads. I want conversions to improve that my funnel and my data and my nurturing and my everything is working because it's driving revenue. And I'm like, well, you've just sold my services to yourself because that's what we do. Do you know what I mean? And but sometimes I have to say, good luck. Nice to meet you. Good luck. Because there's no change in that because it's been embedded into a marketing manager. And it's good that you went out of your way to understand the importance of that because there are so many, and this is why we're doing this, right? It's not to say that marketing managers are doing a bad job because I'm sure they're working like really hard. But it's to say the lead funnels need to change into more, a targeted focus before. So get more targeted, get very granular on that ideal client profile before you even start your marketing automation funnels. Because like I said, like James, I know wouldn't stick 300 enterprise clients in the same funnel or the same journey automated as the 55,000 established payroll individuals that we've got today. They'd have two different journeys.
Sure.
But because we've understood the targeting first, understood what's resonating with that profile of client, and then you do the campaign. Test it with 50. What do you think of this? Honest reflection. Then go backwards, and then you write the funnel from there. So, yeah.
Nice. So you use the famous takeaway close then, but this time you actually mean it. So I think you need to go and use another company, lose your investment, and then come to me. But you actually mean it.
I mean, I do that quite frequently.
Yeah.
And then you notice, the funniest thing is, I click follow on these people and notify me of anything, and I've probably seen 5, 6 this year, and they've changed positions.
Yeah.
They've changed to another company. And I'm like, I congratulate them. I'm like, congrats, you are going to do great because I know you wanted to change.
Interesting.
Not quite that blunt. I know you wanted change, but you couldn't because your seniors are saying, where are the fucking leads? And you're like, no, that's not how it works. And they want to do things that are creative to support sales, but don't have the time because they got some kind of director breathing down their neck going, we need to spend another $5,000 on PPC. And it's like, no, you don't.
But it's also educating people above, right? Because, the marketers get whatever they get. The rap's pretty hard at times. But it's also educating the board, the CEOs, whoever it may be, and letting them understand how marketing works. I don't want them to go and code things up or anything like that. I want them to understand what it is that the outcomes are. Because, like Joseph said, you can go and spend $5,000 on PPC tomorrow and it'd be gone. That's easy to do. Anyone can do that. It's about understanding what you expect from that $5,000 and how long you want it to churn.
So how did you communicate that? Because there are, and this is why I brought you on, right? Because there are marketing managers who are like, Joe, I've tried with my CEO and they're not listening. What advice would you give to them? Because that's like...
Get lucky with your CEO is the first one.
Move company.
I genuinely believe is you've got to put in the time. I'm quite lucky because both CEOs take a lot of time to understand what's going on. And COVID helped that, right? Because at the time we went to the bare bones as companies. And I was one of those who was left in the company, and the CEO had to take the time to understand how we're going to do things. And it was me explaining it and saying, well, this is the way to do it, and this is it. And you have to build the respect up from the people above. So, you know, I think it works both ways. I respect the CEO and the CEO respects me. If I make a decision, it normally stands. And, you know, when we had the conversation initially with Kerdos, my CEO just got it because I've taken that time to explain what it is we're trying to achieve there. My other thing is actually understand your CEO on a personal level if you possibly can. If they're jet setting away off in Dubai or whatever, then so be it. You can only do so much, right? But there's also a perspective, especially in the SMEs or the medium-sized companies. CEOs want to know more. They always want to know more. But you have to paint the picture. So whether that's with analytics or results or taking them on a conversation and actually speak to Joe and the team. Because, you know, Neil, my CEO, did that from the off. He wanted to know where he was spending his money. And that it's always an easier conversation then because he understands it, and then we just sign it off and crack on. But you have to take time to do it. It's so valuable because otherwise what will happen is you're spending money, and you get 6 months down the line, you go, well, I haven't got anything for it. And then who takes the rap for that? The marketing manager or the CEO? Or that's where the trade-off comes.
Yeah, so I guess in essence what you're saying, which I think is the key point here, that the education process to the CEO is a continuous process. It's not a case of, okay, I want to spend this money in this area, now I want to educate you just solely on this one avenue. It's a case of continue to educate them. When it gets to the point of making the decision, they'll have more faith in you, and then it becomes easier to.
I think education's everything in marketing in general. You have to understand your target audience. You have to understand the people you work with. You have to understand the sales team and how they work. You have to understand, you know, the tools you have and the technology you have. Education is the biggest part of any job, in my opinion. Once you understand that, you can then move forward and apply that knowledge to make it work.
Nice. I wanted to ask you a little bit about email marketing.
Okay.
James, I think Joe said something about you having quite an interesting opinion on this. So obviously an email list is, depending where you get the data from, is sometimes hard to build, and you can get to a place where you've got thousands and thousands and thousands of records. How do you feel, given the amount of work that goes into creating that list, when someone unsubscribes?
I quite like it. And the reason being is if they don't want to hear more from us, that's fine. That's okay. Because we obviously didn't get the right person, or didn't target the right person, or we didn't get the right message across. So you look at yourself first as a team and go, did we educate them enough about what we're trying to sell them or sell our services, whatever it may be? But then also secondly, is that company the right fit for your company? Because it could be another problem where we have a smallish payroll team. I'm giving my example here, a smallish payroll team, and they don't have any budget. That's okay. Some people might want to stay on the newsletter, and that's cool, but they might not want marketing emails. And it's working a difference out between a sales and marketing email and sort of an educational email, because I think all marketing all people in marketing should have both, personally.
I see you chuckling away in the corner there, Joe. What's going on in the head?
I'm just imagining. I'm gonna snip at this because I can just imagine some like marketing manager out there going, James, you don't know what you're talking about. But I can't disagree with that. It makes sense. Like, it's the same with us. When you qualify someone out, for whatever reason it is, even if it's an uptight individual, that you do still get, even with our approach, unfortunately, you politely remove them. And that's because they don't want to listen, even if you've got anything. I'm sure I've been annoyed in my position and unsubscribed from something just because it pissed me off at that time. And not because it didn't resonate. It's because I've seen like 5 emails from them in like 1 week, and it was too much or something. I don't even have a clue what they do, but it's not a bad thing. It's not, because sometimes someone will be unsubscribing because it's irrelevant, or they've moved into a different role
and their needs are changed. But you do have to put it in perspective. If I lost 2,000-3,000 overnight, I'd be pretty concerned. Right? So you do have to put it in perspective. I'm not saying if everybody unsubscribed, I'd like it. I wouldn't. It's you have to constantly monitor it as well, because you could have done something horrific in your communication style and people just don't like that. And like Joe just said, their needs may have changed, and you have to cater around your audience first. That's the main goal.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I wanted to ask you about that. Joe said something off camera, and I was like, right, well, let's get into it. Let's find out the answer, and it's an interesting one. Joe, you touched upon demand funnels, and I don't know if this is just because I'm out of touch. I'll be completely transparent, but James, how much of an overlooked demand funnel do you think a website is?
It's a tough one because there's a trade-off either way, right? If you have the tools in the background for the website to work, a website is a shell. You have to have all the other stuff behind it, i.e. email automations, the CRM systems, everything works. And it should work clockwork, right? But you can go and spend lots of money on a website, making the best looking website. And then what happens? Because your clients then expect to get an email or whatever. And I think the B2C world is actually moving closer to the B2B world more than ever, right? Because as soon as you buy something from a consumer or a consumer product, you get an email saying it's going to be delivered at this time, this time, and this time. In the B2B world, you're not used to that. And I think it's changing now. We do it quite regularly, going, right, you can expect us to hear from here, here, and here. We'll be in touch at this point. And the client has a different touch point then, because you've sold them something and it keeps them in the loop. And that's my fear. When you spend lots of money on websites, that's fine. But if you thought about the other bits you need to cater with a website.
I think it's massively overlooked from a brand perspective, though. Which then does affect that demand, or someone going into that demand funnel. A website is geared to lead capture more often than not.
Yeah.
But there are ways, like even on yours, I did look at it probably a couple of weeks ago, and even the current website, when you click on like the key areas that are you a payroll, do you work in a payroll role? Do you work in accounting or whatever? And it goes to like different routes. So it gives you kind of 3 options, 3 different routes. You then go on that route, and then when you come through to the lead form, it asks you enough relevant questions that it almost profiles it. And actually, there's a guy called Chris Walker. Are you familiar with Chris Walker? Works for a demand gen firm in the US. And he talks about why websites forms should qualify people out. And like the payroll centers does take it to that level. What roles, seniority do you sit within? How often do you train? When was the last time you did any training? What kind of platforms do you use? These kind of things on these forms, not all of them, but on these forms, actually almost pre-qualify that opportunity. What kind of standard they go to, or if they're even downloading free training, I think you ask a couple of questions as well, right?
Yeah, always.
Yeah,
everything's always gated as such. That's what the term you use. And we have lots of different. We spent a lot of time building up a customer journey, right? We don't just have one customer journey on our website. We probably have about 50.
Wow.
But they're all catered around different needs, right? If you're a member, or if you're just going to buy a product, or whatever it may be. It's then, I think if I go back to right from the beginning, you were saying about why sales and marketing and why we work really well is all that data goes into CRM, and the sales team don't even have to do anything. It's there for them. So for them, there's like, well, happy days. I can just make more calls and make more money. And that's really important. The last thing you want to do is have a spreadsheet and then they have to then put it in and all those things. It's the sales nightmare. They want to have a system where they can just make calls and make money.
And for outbound agents who are calling, that insight is second to none on how you can have how you can relate to someone, and have that rapport. It's just phenomenal. So that I guess that's the reason why I put website in there, because I'm guessing you can almost score that individual when they come through. And actually, if there's after they've had the free training pack, they're not really relevant, but you can almost put them into your then automation funnel, right?
Yeah, so we do it through sort of like how much time they've spent on the website. You have to be a bit careful of this, because it is a point where some people just leave a tab open and then it's constantly calculating. You could be on there for about 20 minutes. Doesn't mean they're a hotter person than somebody with 1 minute. You have to set a goal around what you think is about right, and then what you tweak it all the time with sales team. So if we've got 0 to 15 seconds and they disappear off the page, then yeah, they're just looking around. But if they're there for a minute, 2 minutes, and they're scrolling down and having a little good proper look, you're scoring every bit. And then at that point, the score is getting higher, and then we just have sort of a chili system where it depends on how hot it is. And that's it's as simple as that. There has been occasions where I've heard other marketers where they'll score it, and then it gets to like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. But what does that mean? Because does 1,000 and 2,000 make it any better? Don't know. The sales team have to qualify that. You know, there's only so much a marketing team or an IT team or whatever it may be can do. You actually sometimes have to get on the phone to that person and just see, and then we just tweak the algorithm.
Yeah. That's really interesting. It kind of feeds into what we were speaking about last week with Adam Weeks from Big Tin Can, doesn't it? So I was just thinking then when you were speaking, so in terms of you were saying you have your chili rating or whatever it is, how do you then, I guess, process what content is relevant to the person at any given stage of the chili rating? Because when we were speaking to Adam, he was effectively saying, look, someone could be at this level, and then we will show them this content is relevant for them at this point in time.
Yeah. So, how do you know, I guess, how effective that content is to the sales team? How do you know what content's working?
I'd put it in two ways. So the first one is, the data that we use is number of people in payroll. Because depending on how big your payroll team is, depends on what needs you're going to need from our company, right? That's it. We did make the mistake years ago where we were going, we need job titles, and that was what we're going to use. And then we were going to say, well, this is the decision maker, and we were then targeting them, and it didn't quite work properly because we just didn't understand the audience. So instead what we did was we changed it to number of people in payroll. And all right, 9 times out of 10, it's accurate. There are times where it's not accurate, and it's from the gated forms. They fill in the form, and then we can then change the content depending on that data. So we've sort of set our sort of channels dependent on that. So 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, and then 20 plus. And then you get to the 20 pluses, and you're kind of talking to the big companies, and they need a completely different sort of style of message. They're going to FDs for money, and you get into a different conversation, and that's where it becomes more consultancy led rather than just a standard sale. And that's where some of our biggest clients have come from.
It's interesting.
Yeah, because I think it's really sparked from last week's one with Adam Weeks. He talks about that their system can identify areas that content isn't being distributed in the right way, or where you are losing sales at the point that you distribute a piece of content. And it kind of made me think, I wonder how you do that. Or have you ever found that your workflows on email, because I'm guessing you don't do HTMLs, do you?
Well, they are HTMLs in essence, but it's, you don't sit there and code them anymore. That's long gone,
sure. But I guess the content is more, and I know that you focus heavily on education, but do you ever get like that visibility of your workflow where you almost know where people are slipping off and then continue not to read anymore, and then you've then gone, okay, I need to change it at that point?
But then we build it in the workflow. So we put them sort of for a different channel. So they get to a point, if they don't open and click, we put them down a different channel. And we go, right, we just keep resending until they do review it. And that takes months, and they come back in the funnel. And it's that whole thing, because otherwise what you're trying to do is cater for everybody individually, and that's quite difficult. Unless you're, looking for 5 or 10 consultants, you can make it really niche for them. But we're talking on a mass scale sometimes. And it's really difficult to have a personalised message that resembles with everybody. But that's where sort of using data in your emails really helps. Because, if you go, oh, Jenny, you've got 5 people in your payroll team, we'd love to help you. They're like, whoa, how do you know that? That's amazing. I'll come to... And that's really clever marketing. That's what we do at times. We did it another time in August where we had a customer flow. And what we were doing was trying to target our sort of niche customers for our biggest consultancy package. And, we got leads off the back of that within 2 campaigns. And that's, for marketing B2B sort of style, that's really good going for us. They're worth a lot of money. And
you're capturing that demand, aren't you? Because you're being relevant on your workflows.
And then we're helping the sales team, and it all goes from there. So it works both ways. It's just... you can overcomplicate workflows as well, right? Like you can end up getting this great big workflow and then you never know what's going on and you don't know where different people are on a tree. And I've seen them work really badly and I've seen them work really well. I like to keep ours sort of stupid simple. You know, and my team love to make things really complicated because they think it looks great, but let's just simplify the whole thing, simplify the message, and let's send more campaigns rather than try and do it all in one email. You know, and that's maybe that's the journalism in me, but I like to keep things really simple and stupid.
Well, sounds like it's working. So
well, I'm still here now. So.
I know. Speaking about marketing from your perspective, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your webinars and free training and how long it took you, I guess, to gauge a return on investment on those. And the reason I want to ask is because I think it's very easy to do exercises like free webinars, training and stuff like that, and you do one and it returns nothing. You're like, fuck this, like I'm not doing it again. So how long did it take for you to gauge a return on investment? And I guess how hard was it to persevere when you're seeing no return initially? I can imagine. Anyway.
Yeah, it was. I can give it in two ways because I've seen it in my old company where they were constantly trying to get people on these free demos, webinars, whatever you want to call them. They're doing the same thing. It's a sales demo. And you get 5 people on there and then nothing would happen. And we did that every single month for about 12 months. And it was deflating because you're thinking, well, I'm putting all this time and effort to try and get these people on there and it just didn't work. Whereas in the payroll center, in the accounts payable world, what we do is we make it relevant to a certain subject and topic that's going on within the industry. And it's not a sales demo at all. It's actually free education for them to try and make us
trust the brand.
Trust the brand, but also do it for yourself, right? Like I'm a big believer on if you do something for yourself, you're more likely to use it in the future. If you get told you have to do something, you could be like, well, I'm not going to do that in 2 weeks' time. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's why with sort of our membership webinars or whatever it may be, at the time when we first started them, and this is going back 5 years now, we were getting, I don't know, less than 30 odd people on them at times. And you're thinking, is this good? Is this bad? We had no way of quantifying that data. Now we're talking to 300-400 people at every single webinar. And yes, it's part of their package and it's part of their membership, but it keeps them a member for a whole cycle, and then they renew. And it's that they trust the brand to keep delivering what they need. You know, and I've seen it work in a different way in terms of sales demos where you don't necessarily have to do a webinar every single month. Instead, why don't you just record one, let them download it and let them watch it themselves when they want to, and then make that conversation back. It's a different psychology to it because everybody thinks you have to do it live, but you don't.
It's funny you say that because we have a pre-discovery video. So if my SDRs find that someone's on the fence slightly, they'll send that video. And if they're genuinely interested, they'll then book one in. And I prefer them to, and this pre-discovery video is probably listened to, I probably need to change it. But it's been listened to probably over 148 times now.
Wow.
And this is people that there is an interest to grow, but they maybe timing's not quite right. The SDR's like, well, I'm not going to force you. I want you to watch it so you can have a bit of more understanding as to exactly what we do, and then and also how we've helped others, and then I'm going to call you in a couple of days' time. And then you can then tell me whether you think you're now at the right time.
I think there's some relevance to the unsubscribe story there, isn't there? It's essentially a case of, well, this is the email, this is the video, and then you vet them out. If they unsubscribe, they don't want a meeting, or if they...
And me and Malcolm still have an hour in our diary.
Yeah. And then I still work off the basis that 5% of people in B2B want to buy at that point. So if you take that into consideration in your database, you don't have many people to be talking to. And that's why it's really crucial to understand where your goal is. Because like at the beginning when I spoke to Kerdos and Joe, it wasn't about the amount of leads. I want to find the 5% that are ready to buy now. That's the key bit, because not everybody can buy tomorrow. No. You know?
Out of that 148 then that have watched that video, did you close 7.5 of them, Joe?
That's why I'm reviewing it at the moment. Actually,
one of them was me.
No, it's funny because this is why you employ people like Alex and James, because then Alex then turns around and go, Joe, that pre-discovery video, how many people actually then come back? And I'm like, okay, Jack, let's have a look. And actually, it's probably around about 10% who then go to discovery. So, but actually, is that a good thing? Have we established that the other, 90% aren't? But it's always good to change content. But I asked them to now take feedback on it because we missed a trick there.
And also, I think you can use that to remarket as well.
100%.
That's something that a tool that doesn't get used enough is when somebody's viewed something, maybe in 6 months' time, you can then remarket back to them because you already have their data.
Oh, I mean, we obviously have visibility tools that tell us when someone's gone back onto that email to watch that video. And actually, sometimes when they've watched it 2 or 3 times, I tell the guys, call them. It was like Steve at Hatam, one of our clients, now a client. I was like, look, Steve, I've seen you've been very active on my recommendation. Are we now in a good place to move forward? And he went, yeah.
That was that.
That was that. But
Here's
it's
the
the same
doctor
with
sign, mate.
same with pre-discovery. And then we had a very hectic onboarding, which was great.
Nice.
So, yeah, it was good.
Sounds great.
It was good fun.
Good. I'm glad. I wanted to ask you just kind of before we drop into the last point, James. So from like an ads perspective, obviously like organic growth, organic lead capture, whatever you want to go into is great. But how important would you say ads are to add to that?
I'm 50-50 on this sort of thing.
Really?
I've seen it work really badly, but I've also seen it work really well. And I've said that about most things in marketing. Is it's always down to opinion.
What's yours?
Ads can be done well if you know the target audience you're trying to achieve, and you know what words you're trying to target, and you know full well that your target audience is on those keywords. And the problem we could have is you can go and spend, again, £5,000, let's say, and just blast it, and it can just be to your mum, basically, and they have no interest on it. That's the problem you have with ads, is Google's very good at taking money, but sometimes it's not very good at delivering leads. And that's why, we've had to employ an agency to do our ads for us, because I haven't got the team or the time to be doing that, but they are very niche and very good at what they do. And that's why we've had to employ an agency to do that. But I do think it's relevant, because if you've got more touch points with customers, they're more likely to buy with you.
Yeah, of course.
What you don't want to be doing is going, no, it doesn't work for us, so I'm just not going to bother trying it. You've got to try everything and come to your own conclusions. But I believe that when you try something, you have to give it 150%. Otherwise, what you'll do is you'll buy loads of different things, whether it be ads, technology, software, whatever it may be, and you're just constantly changing the marketing strategy. Whereas I think you should just do one thing and do it 150% and then work out whether it works or not. And that's exactly what we've done. We've scaled on what works, and then we've scaled again and scaled again. And that's that comes from the CEO, I'll be honest. It's not just my thing. It's, the CEO I work for, he's adamant. You double down on what works.
Yeah. And if you can't get specific enough, so those out there who are probably wondering about spending money on Google pay-per-click, if it doesn't allow you to become specific enough, and if, let's say, 1 in 8 is relevant or 1 in 6, then it's probably not worth you going through a bidding war if you're in competition. That's why we don't do it, because I know how much our competitors are spending, and it just becomes a bidding war. So if I want to be in front of them, they then spend a bit more to knock me down, and then I then drop down, they then drop down, I then go, there's no point in this bidding war sometimes for leads when only one of them is relevant from 8 or 6, and then you're converting 1 in 5 to 10, and you're spending, and I know our competitors are spending in the region of about 25 to 35 grand a month to be top, but they're getting all of the leads that I would say no to. So there's no point in me doing it. Does it create demand? Depends if it can be specific enough. Does LinkedIn like ads help? I think lead capture, some industries, yes. But the ads on LinkedIn, I would say more from a brand perspective or educational, or promoting a webinar that's free insight and be very specific with your audience. Even get granular, very granular in size of business. And then retargeting them, that can create demand funnels. But again, if you're just spam and lead capture to any, and a lot of companies do this. They go, oh yeah, I've tried LinkedIn ads before, it doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, what was the category? I mean, well, we can work with any business. I went, well, instantly you fucked.
But the thing is also, I'll go back to the point of target audience again, is if marketers don't know how to communicate to their audience, go and set up a round table with your biggest clients and say, where do you hang out? And that's the key thing, because some people might not use LinkedIn. Everybody just assumes you use LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I'll even speak for myself. I don't use LinkedIn just for marketing. Like, I don't use it on a personal level. I know it's out there, but I wouldn't go out and, network with people on it or anything. That's not, how I use it. But because I'm a marketer, you're associated to LinkedIn and social media. And that's the problem is, with us in the payroll world and the accounts payable world, we've had to build up a following. We didn't just buy it. We didn't get some Chinese bots to do it for us or anything like that. We've created an organic following, which has kind of built our company. But that's taken years and years and years to build on. And to be fair, COVID helped generate the social demand from our side, because people want to just still believe that we're still real, still going, we can still help. But we give away free stuff as well, so they get a different alternative. But yeah, if I was to say to any marketer, go and speak to your clients and survey them. And
we spoke about this before, and people don't do that bit, or they don't even think about doing that bit.
Yeah. Where did you hear from us? Or how did you hear about us?
How did you hear of us? It never gets asked. Every inbound call that you get, how did you hear about us? You can get granular, because some of them will just go, I just found out through the website, online. Where online? What ads? What did you see? All these things. But then when you're talking to existing clients and asking them what resonates with them, because you want to target more people in similar roles in similar industries, or asking people why they didn't buy, these are all relevant reasons that marketers could do with doing more. And you don't even have to do it from a phone perspective. It helps get the answer quicker, but even like MailChimp surveys or something, and
go get out a clipboard.
Yeah.
We don't need to overcomplicate it. That's what we do at our conferences. We just get the clipboard out if we have to and write it down. I mean, it's not the best way, I guess, for GDPR and things like this, but it's we like to know our feedback. We want testimonials and we want real engagement people. So.
Yeah. Very interesting. Good. It's a good topic, so I'm glad you went into it. I wanted to finally tap into event strategy. I know, Joe, you were keen on talking about this, and you said if we've got time to go into it, we've got time. So let's go into it. What specifically interested you so much about that topic?
Because they do events and conferences slightly different. So you have I know for APA you have a premium event, like a enterprise.
Yeah.
The creme de la cremes.
Yeah.
Would come along, where it was very much wine and dine, very expensive. But then you've also got the other end where you invite I think you said 450 people.
400 people, yeah.
Yeah, 400 people to an event in Birmingham, all payroll.
No, accounts payable.
Accounts payable. But again, that's getting them to your own events, but it's taken time probably where you've had to attend other events to even get to that stage. But what kind of do you do as an entire event strategy per year?
Not a lot, is the honest answer.
Oh, okay.
For two reasons. I'm quite fussy when it comes to conferences, so I only want to go to something that I know my audience is in. So, for example, we decided to take a punt on a HR conference a little while ago. It was a disaster because it wasn't to our audience. But I listened to the sales team and said, "Look, let's try it then. Let's see what we're going to."
At least you know.
I don't think we made a single sale out of it. Now, not every conference brings conversions. We all know that, but it's. I like to stick to what we know rather than keep trying stuff, because, like I just made that comment earlier, when you do something, do it 150%, not 50%. And our strategy with events is we attend sort of the three biggest player conferences in the payroll world every year. One of them being our own conference, and then two being one of our competitors, and then an alliance partner of ours. And yeah, we see the same people probably 3 times a year from a conference perspective. But our one is glitz and glam, gala dinner, education sort of for the 2 days, and then it's wine and dine. But it makes people feel like they've got a purpose within their industry. So we get to speak to them, we get to speak to new companies that we may not have spoken to before. We invited some new leads that, we'd never even heard about before. And, we spoke to them and hopefully they've purchased afterwards.
What is your conversion off the back of an event like that, do you think?
From our own event, it'd be, I don't know, probably about 20 to 30% normally on new customers.
That's huge.
But when you go to other events like our competitors' event, it's a bit we have a good sort of relationship with our competitor, but we can go there, or we might not make a single sale, but what it is it can generate a sale in 6 months' time.
Sure.
So it depends on where you want to qualify your data. Is it in the short term or is it long term? Because people go, you spent 15 grand at a conference, it's not generated in a month. And that's the complete failure. Well, it's not always the case. You have to just see where they are on their journey. On the Accounts Payable Association, we got the biggest Accounts Payable conference in Europe going on in October, 400 people there. And not every single person there is a customer as such. They're new people that we've either qualified through Kerdos or whatever it is. And then we're going to bring them to that and go, this is your community. Go and talk to people. Go and talk to the same people who have the same problems as you. And then what we can then do is help them afterwards and then keep them in that nurture funnel, and we can keep them in the email campaigns or whatever it may be. But events, it really depends on the industry you're in,
I think, if you want to summarise on this entire episode, really, just from what you've said there's two different leads you can get from events, right? But the funnel creates the demand, into then a demand gen funnel. So your everything that they're doing is to provide you education after education after education, putting them in this kind of flow, I guess. But then once they hit that moment of intent, where do they go? Directly to them. They don't go anywhere else. And this is the thing, is that they could go and see someone 3 times over 3 consecutive years at an event, know them. I take advantage of your free webinars every now and then. But they are in the demand gen funnel. So when they do have a needs for, whether it's the platform, whether it's training, whether it's something even a bit more bespoke.
And it's subscribed to our newsletter every week as well. It's
they're in that funnel.
Content,
and there's nowhere else they can go. And that's the whole point. It's about doing things like events, doing things like newsletters, doing things like educational webinars.
Podcasts.
And podcasts, yes.
It's the latest marketing trend, that one.
but the whole point of it is that I know that when we get our 2 to 3 inbound per week saying, hey guys, I'm ready to talk now, it's because we've tried to keep providing that free insight and education so they don't go anywhere else. And also we have advocates now who then turn around and say, you need to go and speak to these guys when they're speaking to John in the pub, who has a problem with his new business team because 3 people have left for another company. Oh, I know these guys. These might be able to help. And then they'll come to us because he's trusted us. But he's not ready to buy, but he's still in that funnel where we're trying to create demand. So when we talk about demand funnels, I guarantee that the only follow-up off the back of a webinar is, what were your thoughts on the webinar? Am I wrong? It's not to then try and force them into some crap conversation which is not going to go anywhere.
But then in 2 weeks' time, we do have somebody go, oh, how are you doing? Did you enjoy the webinar? Oh, we've got this going on. Fancy coming? And that's how we do it. We don't. There's a time scale of it. I know there's pressures within sales, and they need money, and they need leads need to be generated by marketing. But there has to be a timeline for each customer. I'm not saying months and years, but there has to be a point where from the webinar, you don't want to listen and just go, yeah, do you want to buy, do you want to buy, do you want to buy? Because I guarantee your conversion rate will be less than 1%. Instead, what you want to do is then educate them a little bit more, keep them going, and just have those touch points. Don't have a salesperson that constantly wants to sell. Just educate them and direct them in the right way, and they will come back. But it's being trustable, being a trusted brand.
Yeah.
And when they become a 5% B2B purchaser, then they know, your company. That's the key.
But get your targeting right first.
Yeah. Love it. Seems like a great place to close out. So, yeah, from my perspective, really, really interesting episode. So thank you, James, for the insight.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And Joe as well. So, yeah, let's close it off there.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Cheers.
Nice one.